You know when you're at the beach and you see those weird translucent blobs washed up on the sand? Yeah, those things. We usually just poke them with a stick or, walk around them. But what if I told you that that unassuming blob is actually one of the planet's greatest survivors, and it might even hold a secret to a more sustainable future? Pretty wild, right? Okay, let's dive into this. So, meet the jellyfish. When you see them drifting like this, they look almost alien, don't they? They have this incredible, simple beauty. But seriously, don't let that simple look fool you. These creatures have been navigating our oceans for an almost unimaginable amount of time. Just how long are we talking? Well, this number kind of says it all. 500 million years. To put that in perspective, that's more than twice as old as the very first dinosaurs. They were here way, way before trees covered the land. And get this, they have survived every single mass extinction event this planet has thrown at them. And this is where it gets really weird. It's a total paradox, right? How can an animal with no brain, no heart, and no lungs be one of the greatest survivors in the history of our planet? It's a biological puzzle that has had scientists scratching their heads for a long, long time. Okay, so the secret starts with their family tree. Jellyfish are conidians, and that whole group is named for their defining feature, their superpower, really, these tiny explosive stinging cells. These things, conidocytes, are basically microscopic harpoons, a brutally effective tool for hunting and defense that has worked for them for 500 million years. Their survival kit is just genius in its simplicity. I mean, being 95% water basically makes you invisible. They move just by squirting water. And then you get some, like the box jellyfish, that have this surprisingly complex setup with 24 eyes, giving them a full 360-degree view. And others, like the lion's mane, can have tentacles that stretch longer than a blue whale. A blue whale! Their life cycle is also pretty remarkable. They start out as this little plant-like thing called a polyp, just stuck to the seafloor. Then it releases these tiny, free-swimming versions of itself, which grow up into the adult jellyfish we all recognize. Seems like a pretty standard one-way street from birth to death. Or so we thought. But of course, there is a twist. There's this one species, the Turritopsis dohrnii, that can do something that sounds like it's straight out of science fiction. When it gets stressed or injured or even just old, it can literally hit the rewind button. It goes from being an adult all the way back to that baby polyp stage and just starts its life over. Yeah, it's biologically immortal. Mind-blowing. So their survival skills are incredible, no doubt. But let's get practical for a second. For most of us, the main interaction we're going to have with a jellyfish is a painful one. So what should you actually do if you get stung? Because there is a ton of folklore out there, and spoiler alert, most of it is just wrong. Okay, let's bust some myths, and this is coming straight from the Mayo Clinic. First, the famous one, do not use urine. It's not helpful. Also, avoid rinsing with cold, fresh water because that can actually trigger the stingers to release even more venom. And definitely don't try to scrape them out or rub the area with a towel. You're just going to make things worse. So, what's the right way to do it? It's a simple 3-step process. First, carefully pluck out any tentacles you can see with some fine tweezers. Second, soak the area in hot water, hot but not scalding, for about 20 to 45 minutes. That helps neutralize the venom. And finally, you can use some hydrocortisone cream to help with the itching. All right, now let's zoom back out to the big picture. Our relationship with jellyfish is changing. These huge population explosions, these blooms, are happening a lot more often. And they're usually linked to human stuff, like our warming oceans and overfishing, which removes their natural predators. And these blooms can clog up coastlines and be a real problem for fisheries. For a long time, we've just seen these blooms as a total nuisance, right? A pest. But what if we've been looking at them all wrong? What if this massive explosion of jellyfish wasn't a problem, but an opportunity? To explore that very question, scientists went on a serious deep dive. They sifted through over 7,500 different studies to find the 65 most relevant ones. They were on a mission to get a clear, data-driven answer to the question, what is the actual nutritional value hidden inside a jellyfish? And they found it. Their conclusion, right here in this quote, is a total game changer. They position jellyfish not as a pest, but as a valuable and sustainable ingredient for aquaculture. In other words, as food for the fish that we farm. So how do they stack up? Well, this chart compares the protein in different feed ingredients. And yeah, traditional fish meal is still the gold standard.
But look at jellyfish. Its protein content is actually really respectable, putting it right in the same league as other common feed sources. And it's not just about the amount of protein, it's about the quality. Jellyfish are packed with the specific amino acids that fish need to thrive, the very ones that can be lacking in plant-based feeds. They even have compounds that can improve gut health and boost immunity in farmed fish.
But this is where jellyfish go from just being interesting to being a nutritional superstar. Look at this chart for something called arachidonic acid, or ARA. It's a fatty acid that is absolutely crucial for fish health and for helping them resist stress. And jellyfish aren't just a good source, they're an amazing source, totally outperforming traditional stuff like krill and anchovy.
So this really sums up the new way of looking at them. The very things we saw as problems, like those massive blooms, can be completely reframed. On one hand, yeah, they can be a pest. But on the other hand, they represent this huge, untapped source of high-quality protein, amazing fats, and valuable minerals like zinc. It completely changes how you see that weird blob on the beach, doesn't it? It's a reminder that something we might just dismiss as simple, or even as a nuisance, might hold really complex and surprising solutions. Which kind of leaves us with one final thought. If we were so wrong about jellyfish, what other secrets are just waiting for us out there in the deep?